Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the Republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians. Russia,
Russia, Russia, Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Well, not there, not there. There we are.
Disaster.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Badlands Story Hour. I'm Chris Paul. That is Burning Bright.
This is
John
not Story Hour.
Herold. Did I say Story Hour?
Yep.
We are off to an inauspicious beginning. Welcome to
It can
Devolution Power Hour, which is going to be basically like Badlands Story Hour without a movie. We're going to just
less realistic movie.
Do the movie of the day. All the stuff you saw on the screen today, that's the movie we are going to talk about. John is in Kansas. He hosted an event. He did a great hosting job. I think I saw a little bit of it. It was like stand-up comedy. Maybe we should play that. Maybe we will play that. But first we have to get to a couple sponsors. He also kind of hoodwinked me on the intro there. He said, here's the DPH intro. I don't think it has the Badlands intro. So I went and got the Badlands intro and played that, and then played the thing that he sent me that also had the Badlands intro. The whole thing is already spinning out of control.
Yeah.
And you know, I haven't hosted a show in a while, except for Story Hour, but that's, you know, pretty straightforward. Putting together a show is not something I've done in a while. So we are totally screwed here. Things are we're just going to be flying by the seat of our pants. I think it will go well.
Something is going on with my ears. I think it's because I'm sick. Do I sound normal?
You sound slightly nasal, but totally fine volume-wise.
Okay. Everything is very loud in my head.
Yeah, it would have been better if you hadn't delayed saying the part about it being loud, so that I wouldn't have said the part about you sounding nasal. See, I could have just answered your loudness question
instead of just insulting how I sound, just how I talk.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about that there football game, the Army-Navy game. We're going to talk a little bit about Syria. We're going to talk about Tina Peters. Ashe is going to join us in just a few short minutes, and I think that we will maybe talk about the totally influencer-generated MAGA civil war. Going to talk about Venezuela because it's hilarious and awesome. And the Core 5.
Yeah.
Sovereign Alliance. Formalized.
They're using every possible term that they can come up with all across the battle space, except for that one.
Well, you know, I have a feeling that they probably decided what they were going to call these things before you did. I don't know that for sure.
That's true. It's more the media space is like, it's the multipolar Core 5.
Core 5's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's going to have to be scrapped.
Not catchy.
Get on that, branding people. That's not going to work. Core 5 is no good. But you know what is good? CBD from CB Distillery. The holidays are hectic. Family drama, last-minute shopping, and late nights can make the holidays feel like an endurance test. That's why I'm sharing the ultimate holiday survival plan, CBD from CB Distillery. Seriously, everything you need for a merry holiday is here. Stuff mom's stocking with CBD for better sleep. Gift your fitness friends a pain relief stick for post-workout pain. And don't forget to grab a little holiday calm for yourself. Every CB Distillery product is made with premium quality, clean ingredients, no fillers or anything artificial. And with over 2 million customers and 100% money-back guarantee, it's the gift you can feel good about giving. This year, give yourself and everyone on your list the gift of better sleep, less stress, and pain relief with CBD from CB Distillery. And with the promo code, you can save 25% on your entire purchase. Visit cbdistillery.com and enter code DPH for 25% off. cbdistillery.com, promo code DPH, cbdistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on your individual state regulations, because some of these states are just total CBD narcs, and that's messed up. CBD is a good product, and you know, you're not going to get high from it, which is not quite as exciting, but it helps you go to sleep, and it helps you with your pain. It helps you with your stress. So it has all the positive things without that totally negative thing, getting high. Yeah. So we have that, and then we have one more, and then we are going to be right along into it. A word from our good friends over at Chef IQ. You know, every family's got that one holiday cooking disaster story. Mine was the year the turkey was still frozen inside. I could have used Chef IQ back then. Chef IQ is actually awesome, and we used it at Thanksgiving this year. You just stick one of those little nodes right in the meat, and it is synced to your phone. They communicate. The app on your phone tells you exactly what is going on with the meat. You can put the node inside the oven while the meat cooks, and it gives you updates. You get a perfect cook every time. It has you enter in all the details you need. You know exactly how it's going to be. Always comes out perfect. Chef IQ's awesome, but all their products are really great. I have the ice maker. I have the obliterator. They do not mess around over there. Chef IQ Sense is the wireless cooking thermometer that takes all the guesswork out of holiday meals. Your roast, your turkey, your prime rib comes out perfect every time, turning I think it's done into I know it's perfect. With Chef IQ, you can sip your cocoa and actually spend time with your family instead of hovering over the oven. And here's the best part. It's the gift everyone will love. Perfect for seasoned cooks, kitchen rookies, and everyone in between. This season, give yourself and your loved ones the gift of perfectly cooked meals with Chef IQ. And with the promo code DPH, you can save 30% and get all your shopping done. Go to chefiq.com, promo code DPH, chefiq.com. And I believe we have safely and successfully made it through the commercials. So
we're out of the starting blocks.
We are out of the starting blocks. We tripped a few times, but thank goodness they gave us a mulligan on the start. And by they, I mean the audience, and by gave us, I mean I took. So it's all
can only get worse from here. It's only higher stakes from now.
You say stakes. I say, how about a Chef IQ?
I did remember last week that I have a fully frozen turkey in my basement that my wife got from her work for free. They give us a turkey every year, but we didn't get asked to cook the turkey this year, so we just stashed it. So there's just a full turkey just waiting for some sort of occasion for us to eat.
You're a full turkey just waiting for an occasion.
We haven't even told anybody in the family that we've withheld an entire turkey from them.
I bet they would be super mad.
They're kind of expensive.
You can't find those anywhere.
Yeah, all right, well, they're all around me, but you'd have to pluck them, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Keep on plucking that chicken. That's not what the video says. Anybody out there who knows what the viral video I'm talking about is will be laughing right now. Ashe might know what it is. I'm not sure.
I don't. I thought you were just being weird.
No, I was being weird
unless
you know the video.
Yeah.
Hold on. I will get the video.
All right. What's up, guys? You're doing great.
Thanks. I feel like that was sarcastic, though.
Not even a little bit. It's every day is story hour.
Yeah,
great.
My ears are having a bit of an issue, and Chris just seems to be having a bit of an issue just in general. I think it's gonna.
I've been a little retarded so far, but I think that I can recover, and I think we're gonna have a good show. And we're gonna start out this way, just to make sure that's not true.
Then on Sky Guardian, and then check that 7 day to make your weekend plans.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick.
And I guess that's true.
Keep plucking that chicken.
You've never seen
I've
that?
never seen that.
Nope.
No.
Okay. Well, keep on. He said pluck. Keep on plucking that chicken.
Didn't sound that way to me.
No, that's not what he said. Okay, so let's start here. We were just going to have Ashe on to talk about Tina Peters, and then out of nowhere, Ashe sends me this evening, and I'm like, oh wow. And she says, hey, look at who that is right next to DJT today at the Army Navy game. That is Mad Dog Mattis right there. The first Secretary of Defense in Donald Trump's first term as president. Ashe, I will just let you kind of kick that off if you want. Otherwise, I'll just keep babbling.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was unaware of how much of a symbol for Syria Mattis is, which was interesting. Chris, you brought up that, Trump was posting about Syria. There was an attack in Syria today. So, that's interesting that he's pulled him out. And Syria is apparently the reason that Mattis left and was the most critical that he is before January 6th. The most critical that Mattis ever was against President Trump was about Syria. They disagreed on policy, and Mattis said that if Trump pulled out of Syria in an instant withdrawal or sudden withdrawal, that it would lead to a rise of ISIS. And today, ISIS attacked U.S. interests in Syria. 3 people are dead, 2 service members, I believe, and 1 civilian interpreter. And they're blaming ISIS. So that's
Yeah, I thought that was particularly interesting with the timing. And here is that Trump post. This was from this morning. Dun, dun, dun. It's almost here. Here it is. We mourn the loss of 3 great American patriots in Syria, 2 soldiers and 1 civilian interpreter. Likewise, we pray for the 3 injured soldiers who, it has just been confirmed, are doing well. This was an ISIS attack against the U.S. and Syria in a very dangerous part of Syria that is not fully controlled by them. The president of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, is extremely angry and disturbed by this attack. There will be very serious retaliation. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And he gave it the full signature, as much signature as you could possibly have. So al-Sharaa, formerly known as al-Jilani, formerly al-Jilani, he looks like Sacha Baron Cohen's character from the movie The Dictator. And I was trying to find a picture of him. And here he is from the movie with Ellen DeGeneres and with Oprah, of all people. Oh, wait, I should probably pull that up. There we are. How about that? Oprah, Ellen. I mean, how much weirder could reality get than what we are seeing with all this whatnot? I'm just, damn it. Why won't that picture work? It's all falling apart.
The Jolani thing reminded me, I had said to Chris before the show, Ghost and I talked about this a few months ago. The arc of Jolani is almost identical to the villain, the Ben Kingsley played villain in Iron Man 3, Trevor Slattery, who is a British actor, a stage actor who is filming the terrorist videos and threatening the United States with those videos. And then when Tony Stark goes to find the terrorist, he finds out it's just this British guy who's being paid by Intel to make propaganda videos. So I just looked up that Iron Man 3 was 2013. The Dictator, which I have not seen, was 2012. So it is interesting that it's right around the same time they were like kind of hitting you over the head with like, hey guys, the terrorist leaders are fake. They're not real people. But another interesting thing is that a few weeks ago, Jolani was supposedly met with Trump. And all we got out of that meeting was Trump saying that they've agreed to, that Jolani has agreed to security, like cooperative security agreements, specifically regarding ISIS. And to me, the template that they agreed to was almost identical to what we've seen play out with the Taliban in the wake of the Kabul withdrawal and a few other places. But basically, it's again, it's all the conning people are like, Jolani is just the bad guys. The bad guys won, and the U.S. has been humiliated. And yet, I don't know, ISIS, besides today's attack that we're being told of, they haven't been doing very well.
Ashe, would you like to say?
Well,
won't. I'll keep going. But
yeah, no, I do have something to say, but a couple people in Rumble and YouTube, Chris, have said you sound like you're on the wrong mic.
Yes, I think that I have. I think that has resolved itself by this point. Yes, we're good now.
So I thought ISIS was the CIA. So, and Trump has promised retaliation. So I think that sounds good. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, that to me, I'd said this 2024, right? It was the end of 2024 when we had the Assad withdrawal from Syria, December 2024, so a year ago. And at the time, I had said, I think this is the first obvious example of sovereign alliance maneuver defense. We've heard of Russian maneuver defense. I'm sure every nation uses versions of this, right? It's just clear, like, envelopment counter strategies. I think Alexander the Great is actually the one who came up with it originally. So at the time, one of the things I pointed out in December 2024 was that Assad flees Syria because Jolani's coming to get him, even though he had never retreated from any advance previously in the previous years. So immediately retreats from that. They meet no opposition, basically no opposition, en route to Damascus. And the Russian military, we're told, also moved out of the region, including in the sea there. And when asked about that, Sergei Lavrov, like the Western media was saying, oh, the Russians are all running away. And Sergei Lavrov at the time said, these are planned maneuvers, but I understand why it wouldn't look that way to Western propagandists. And I'd said, well, he just gave you a hint right there. He said, these are pre-planned Russian maneuvers, AKA, this is maneuver defense. And what happened immediately after Assad leaves and the Russians leave? The Department of Defense, the United States Department of Defense, we are told strikes 75 ISIS targets in Syria. So we're to believe in December 2024, all this stuff happens totally chaotically, right? And the DOD, the US military, just strikes 75 targets that are ISIS targets. No Russian equipment in the area, no Russian military in the area, which were everywhere at the time. No Assad-loyal Syrian army in the area, only ISIS. So, you know, in the interim, it seemed, or rather after that, it's like Jolani, we're being told, is the leader of Syria. And to me, he's just been a humiliation ritual on the whole regime proxy state status, maybe even more so, to your point about the dictator, Chris, maybe even more so than Zelensky. I mean, what was his opening act to say, like, we're cool with gay people, we're all going to be gay now? You know, it's like, it to me, it just felt like there's too many things that lined up there, with including the Russians saying, we planned these maneuvers in advance, which implies that they were in coordination with the United States military on those ISIS strikes.
It's also interesting thinking in the aftermath of the strikes on Iran, the Top Gun Maverick sequel that we saw a few months back that took out Iran's nuclear capabilities in full. If you apply the same model that we discussed back then to that ISIS strike issue, I mean, we're talking about a country that we have heard and that the regime has advertised extensively with, like, the documentaries about the white helmets and the rest of that, that there's this major threat that's just going to last forever. And a story like that, hey, we came in and knocked out all the ISIS targets, that kind of does a fair job of wrapping that up. This is Reuters coverage of this today, and there are just a few things that I think are interesting to hit. The attack was barely a month after Syria announced it had signed a political cooperation agreement with the U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State, which coincided with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shaara's visit to the White House. The attacker was a member of the Syrian security forces, 3 local officials told Reuters. And I mean, that's the worst source ever, but fine.
But there's 3 of them.
Yeah, thank goodness they backed each other up. Yeah. A Syrian Interior Ministry spokesperson told a state-run television channel that the man did not have a leadership role in the security forces. This is the quote. On December 10th, an evaluation was issued indicating that this attacker might hold extremist ideas, and a decision regarding him was due to be issued tomorrow on Sunday. That's what the spokesperson said. So 3 days ago, they issued a statement that said this particular attacker might hold extremist ideas. And then just before they were about to do something about it, he launched this attack. Pete Hegseth, in his social media post, said that partner forces killed the attacker. A senior U.S. official said initial assessments indicated that Islamic State probably carried out the attack. although the militant group did not immediately claim responsibility. So a senior official said it was the Islamic State, and also the attacker was a member of the Syrian security forces. So I am not sure how those things square, but I'm never sure how these things square because they always seem unbelievably fake to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. It also seems like we're getting musical bad guys lately.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, you have to get pointed. I'm pretty xenophobic and don't pay attention to global news all that much. The only reason I know anything about this stuff is because Burning Bright and Ghost won't shut up about it, and I edit the brief. But it seems so when I think about the stories, because it's really more like how does that story make me feel is my interaction. The Assad construct is very similar to the Maduro construct from a story standpoint, right? Terrible bad guy, horrible dictator. We have him under control right now, but don't, you know, cut our funding or impact our policy in any way, or we're all going to die. But then we have this story about, you know, formerly Al-Jilani. I don't know, what is he calling it? What's he called now?
Trevor Slattery.
Right. He was supposed to be the good guy, right? Or at least the better than Assad guy, and now he's attacking America. What do you guys think? Oh, it's also, by the way, this is, you know, a bit of a squirrel, but it's the anniversary today of finding Saddam Hussein in a spider hole. That was a fun one. Yeah. So that happened today in 2003.
Yeah.
Yep. But what do you guys make, just to bring it back to the original story? What do you make of the Mattis, like the synchronicity of Mattis appearing with the president, this being their most divisive topic, and him showing up on the day of this attack? Coincidence?
I don't think it's
certainly not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, maybe another rhetorical question real question, I guess, for all of us would be, how does this story, this current story, make Trump's decision look? The decision that Mattis disagreed with. I don't even necessarily have an answer to that, but I think that's where I would start with these things, right? To your point, Ash, like, no, I don't think that there's any coincidence here at all. I mean, my gut reaction would be that this didn't happen as it's being described to us. I'm not interested in arguing about whether or not it did happen. It doesn't matter, right? It either did happen or it didn't happen. We're being told the story. So either this happened because this meeting or this convergence between Trump and Mattis was taking place, or we're being told about this. If I had to guess, I would say that this story is being disseminated largely to make Mattis and his ideology look worse. I don't think it makes Trump's ideology look worse. I guess a baseline would just be, it's a chaos region where we shouldn't be involved and American troops shouldn't be there, which was Trump's, basically that was his stance in his first term that war hawks like Mattis disagreed with. So I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a humiliation ritual there on Mattis and his ilk.
Yeah, so Mattis was upset that Trump was pulling out. He wanted to stay in Syria. That's the story we got back then. The fact that Trump made that decision against Mattis's advice caused Mattis, I guess, to split with Trump at that point. And by the way, if you disagree in the chain of command with your superiors' directives, the responsible thing to do is let that person know and then resign, right? I mean, I think that's how that's supposed to go. You're not supposed to go on television and tell people to defy the order or anything like that. Right? We've heard from Trump many times that ISIS was totally wiped out by Raising Cane in just a few weeks. And, I mean, I know that this is not a view that goes over well with everybody, but I think all this stuff at this point is narrative device. Trump knew for certain that Mattis was going to be standing next to him today, this morning. I can't imagine anything otherwise. So does he bring this serious story out to the attention of the American public, then the Mattis appearance later? I can't imagine that these sorts of communications, if we are picking up on something in a valid way, right? We can speculate about these things. We certainly don't know that they're intending to communicate this way. But if they are, it's probably not directed at the general public. It's probably a communication for someone either involved with what they're doing or an adversary that they're trying to intimidate, saying, hey, look at the control that we have over this information environment. So that's how I think of these things.
I do want to point out, and I'm trying to look this up, there are people claiming that Mattis was not with Trump at the Army-Navy game today, but that the White House...
Is that from an old picture?
But that the White House put out the picture of them at the Army-Navy game from 2018, which actually might even more so... that actually might... That's what I'm seeing right now. So shout out to chat for saying that picture was not from today. But the White House account put that picture out today. That is confirmed. The picture they put out of Trump and Mattis is from the 2018 Army-Navy game, which is the time period that we're talking about here. So
is that confirmed? That it's an old image?
The picture's from 2018.
That does make sense. That does make sense. And that actually looks more like that does not, the backdrop and Trump's, I think he was wearing a scarf and stuff today.
Yeah, he is wearing a scarf.
Yeah, so that actually makes total sense. I'll just accept that. So that's interesting then, because the White House's communications team, I would assume, is who runs that account. Yeah. They're putting out that picture with Mattis next to him. So they're not actually associated. There's been no coming back together, which is what them standing next to each other on the field today would have suggested. So yeah, I actually think that that's more interesting.
Right.
It is more interesting. And so the thing that I was going to bring up was Mattis wrote a book and it came out in 2019. He resigned in 2018. Came out in 2019. In the book, the most critical that he was, the book was notable because all of the journalists and critics were expecting that it was going to be like another Bolton kind of thing. Or it's predated Bolton, but the idea of telling all the secrets, attacking the president in a book after leaving the White House, and he didn't, which was notable about his book. The point on Syria, the contention on U.S. foreign policy towards Syria was the most critical that he was in the book. And I haven't read the book, but I asked the machine to do a summary of it. And I asked how the book was received by journalists and kind of what was the vibe of it in 2019. And it says, Mattis avoided naming names, but the target was obvious. The restraint itself was part of the message. This is how a senior civilian military leader dissents without undermining the institution. And that is a very interesting angle for him to take in his book when, the undermining of the institution is, I think, what a lot of us, and certainly now we're exploring with the Russiagate RICO, the treasonous conspiracy, right? That was a big focal point of Trump. Trump was called crazy back then. He was, they spied on my campaign, they subverted my presidency, those things he was called crazy. But now I think we all, at least the majority of Americans, agree that happened. And I'm still on the rug that we're going to get, some third act for Russiagate. But I thought that was interesting angle for him to take in his book right after leaving, with the kind of key focus, main takeaway of the critical reception being about his level of restraint when you disagree with the president. How far do you go?
Yeah, my anecdotal to that, I've mentioned before, I won't go into the whole story, but I've got a cousin, a family member who was in the Army at the time in 2018, actually, and was flying missions over Syria. And, we had some interesting conversations about the Russians at that time. But when it comes to Mattis and a lot of the worldview, the geopolitical worldview he was espousing at that time, Trump was basically being combated in the public narrative by a lot of Russia hawks. And now, I think, obviously, most of that I look at as anti-sovereign alliance, globalist, deep state type of stuff. Over the last few years, my thoughts on that have evolved a bit, and I think that there are real members of, maybe even high command in the U.S. that earnestly believed a lot of the things that they were espousing at that time. I'm not saying that that's necessarily Mattis. And, Exhibit A is my cousin, and a lot of the guys he was working with in Intel earnestly believed that the Russians were they were one incident away from war with the Russians in 2017-18. And the reason I think that's interesting in the context, we'll get into some of this later in the show, but I'm always talking about the Sovereign Alliance. I think the US and Russia is really the relationship there. And then there's other relationships that are forming that into a world-changing thing. But that's the core. And Syria has really was, in my view, the globalist attempt to make damn well sure that relationship was not consummated, or even to make sure that that relationship went wrong during the first Trump term. If you go take a trip down memory lane and go into archive articles or anything like that in 2018, you're going to find dozens of reports from military sources of near misses and close calls and comms issues between the Russians and the Americans. And it was military assets were basically trying to get Trump to take a stronger stance toward Russian presence in Syria. And all this goes even way back to part of my blackpilling as a liberal, where the Clintons wanted the Russians out of Syria. They wanted control over that airspace. So to me, we're talking about Assad and Jolani, and then there's this Mattis stuff. But I think Syria at that time was a proxy play that, in my view, the Russians essentially kept from turning into the next Ukraine. I think it was meant to become the next Ukraine forever war type of model. And they were going to use that to stage all manner of narratives and potential World War III staging.
They've certainly, it seems that they've certainly set up a number of those, and we're kind of seeing them ticked off one by one as Trump kind of resolves these situations so that they can no longer be held over our heads and used whenever necessary by the global intelligence community, military industrial complex, regime, however you want to talk about it. The wars that have started and he ends in 2 days, the India and Pakistan thing, for instance, some of these are started on just the silliest possible events. Yeah. And then he just quickly resolves them. And in reality, I don't know what happened. Of course, it's impossible to know what happened. But in terms of the perceptive reality, the narrative space that we always talk about, that solves that problem. That problem's gone. To reboot one of those problems, you would have to get Trump to agree that it has been successfully rebooted. And that's not going to happen.
And Chris, we saw, before you go on, we saw that literally today and yesterday with Cambodia, Thailand. To your exact point, that Trump had solved that problem narratively. They tried to reboot it this week, and Trump today was actually, no, it's solved again on True Social, so it's over.
It really is incredible how powerful the narratives are and how quickly they can be solved, narratively speaking, if you know that's all it is. And so if we can restrain ourselves from believing in the reality of all these things, whether or not the reality is true, Bernie Bright and I talk about this all the time. If we can stay back off that, then they don't have the support they need to do the things that we ultimately don't want them to do, whether or not the reality is there.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part. It's one of the challenges, and Chris, you've probably seen this more than Burning Bright, is with this Tina Peters story, not just the story of the pardon, but the story of the election fraud surrounding Venezuela and all of this is a crazy week, right? A crazy week in sort of the election / weaponized government / Venezuela. We need to go to war with Venezuela story. And not getting, I generally think that everything's fake, and most people that are in the public sphere are operating with some sort of angle, right? I would call them all feds, but I've evolved my thinking that I think there's layers to this thing, right? And, there's 17 intelligence agencies in the United States. There's foreign intelligence agencies all over the place. There's intelligence alliances, and then there's, corporate intelligence, corporate espionage, and in a global corporate communist reality, that's probably the top leading one, and the combinations of all of those things. So I think that it's hard to pierce it. And one of the things that I go back and forth with is like, if we know it's fake, right? We know that they're telling us a story that's fake. How much do we interact with the story? For the Tina Peters story, I'm all in on this until we have some sort of resolution, because I've been writing about it since August of 2021, and I need the closure. I don't, no matter how fake it gets, I need to see where it goes. But that is difficult. It's certainly been tricky with this Venezuelan election fraud story. We've known that Venezuela participates. We election deniers have known that Venezuelan election fraud is kind of the ground zero of our current machines, going back to I think December of 2020, if not January, February of 2021. But the authorities have known about it since at least 2010. And, a lot of the deals happened in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006. The Democrats were writing about this as a massive security concern in 2010. John Bonifaz, who runs the National Voting Rights Institute, wrote an article. It's still up on NIST.gov of the risks of Dominion and Smartmatic and Sequoia and that whole ecosystem because of the foreign code involved. So this is not, it's not breaking news to anybody with the authority to do something about it. They all seem to have accepted it as a risk worthwhile. John Bonifaz, by the way, the guy who wrote in 2010 about Venezuelan election fraud and the risks of Dominion voting machines, is one of the people that sued me. He signed every single pleading in my case because election denialism is akin to voter intimidation and super dangerous. But he was, an election denier 10 years before he sued me for being one. It's all fake. But, it's
so the people pushing the idea that Venezuela is at the heart of our election fraud system were upset at you pointing out our fraudulent election fraud system.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I was actually doing something about it, right? I was knocking doors and talking to voters and asking them to confirm the record.
Saying,
and so there was a risk of discovery there. But yes, that's it. And,
I'm
it's gone back and
misunderstanding
forth.
a bit.
It's gone back and forth a few times, right?
Yeah.
There was Democrats screaming about it. Then Trump won in 2016. Then we had League of Women Voters, free speech for people come out. The road to impeach Trump has begun. Trump is illegitimate. There's been election fraud. Then they made the movie Kill Chain, right? But then Kill Chain came out, I think, in 2019. But then in 2020, nobody was allowed to question anything about it because Trump was out. Oh my God, we pulled it off. Everybody freeze, right?
Let's catch everybody up if they haven't gotten the Tina Peters news. This was Donald Trump this week on Truth Social. For years, Democrats ignored violent and vicious crime of all shapes, sizes, colors, and types. Violent criminals who should have been locked up were allowed to attack again. Democrats were also far too happy to let in the worst from the worst countries so they could rip off American taxpayers. Democrats only think there is one crime, not voting for them. Instead of protecting Americans and their tax dollars, Democrats chose instead to prosecute anyone they can find that wanted safe and secure elections. Democrats have been relentless in their targeting of Tina Peters, a patriot who simply wanted to make sure that our elections were fair and honest. Tina is sitting in a Colorado prison for the quote-unquote crime of demanding honest elections. Today, I am granting Tina a full pardon for her attempts to expose voter fraud in the rigged 2020 presidential election. And Ashe, you mentioned August 2021, and that was the Cyber Symposium. And the big story of the first day of the Cyber Symposium was, I think that Mike Lindell got delayed or something. He had to reroute his plane to Colorado to pick up Tina Peters and bring her to the Cyber Symposium in Rapid City, South Dakota. Am I remembering all of that correctly?
Yeah, that we were told, the story we were told was that her office was being raided while she was on the plane. And her office was being raided by Jenna Griswold. Jenna Griswold came out that week and did a press conference. Matt Crane, who is the kind of ultimate point of escalation for all things elections, technology related, because it's we've code-based elections, and clerks who have the statutory authority for administering elections, they're not technologists. And so they have to have subject matter experts that they consult. And there's really, there's several of them, but they roll up through this one guy. And this model is in every state. And there's these professional associations that act as sort of arms of the government, but they have zero government oversight. That you can't open records them. There's it's very shadowy. But he was there, kind of holding Jenna's purse while they talked about Tina Peters stealing passwords, leaking them, and trying to steal elections. And that story was always false. And that was what the first part of my first time the season of writing about this story from the Cyber Symposium onward was tracking where their narrative was bullshit and how it fell apart when it was examined. She didn't steal passwords. On the video we found at trial, the video that they claim she leaked passwords, the passwords were obscured and they were only partial. And by the time that the event on the video was over, those passwords weren't used and they were changed. That was part of the protocol. Part of the manual was to change the passwords by the end, but it gave them the narrative to be able to say election deniers are now trying to meddle in elections and steal elections. And they went at her as though she was a 17-time pedophile which interestingly, they just let one of those out of prison because he was incompetent to stand trial. So in Colorado, 17-time pedophile is roaming the streets and Tina Peters is locked up. I don't know, where we want to go with this. I can talk about Tina Peters and the realities versus the narrative of her case. Alpha and Brian and I did 7.5 hours on this. So
okay, well, I don't know if we have 7.5 hours.
You tell me where you want.
Well,
to go.
I thought your post on this, Ashe, was good in terms of not that you read your post, but I mean the angle I think of Chris bringing up that Trump is bringing up Tina Peters, and I saw a lot of the truth community rightly asking aloud, Trump is pardoning somebody who ostensibly is not being charged with federal crimes. But, so on an actual level and a narrative level, how do you see Trump's statements on Tina Peters, the effect of those statements?
On an actual level, well, so the her immediate circumstances of being imprisoned for state level crimes, I don't believe it impacts at all. And I've said this. I was honestly shocked that he did this, because it's we're already seeing the narrative impacts of it, and maybe he wants that, but it's Trump is a dictator. Trump has has jumped the shark on his powers and all of these things here in local Colorado. That's the messaging that we're getting, which is obvious. That's a gimme, right? That's obviously going to happen if he does anything like this. But I think the pardon itself is pretty interesting. And I think it's maybe actuals and narrative. But in terms of her can Peter Tickton show up with the pardon in hand and demand that Tina Peters get out of prison? Well, they've sort of already done this digitally, right? He sent a letter saying, I'm going to come pick up my client. And they said, we don't recognize your pardon. This has all happened. The attorney general said, we don't recognize this. Jenna Griswold, Jared Polis, Colorado Democrats, Colorado DSA, all these people have come out, basically issued the same statement. But in terms of, so the pardon itself is interesting. The post about the pardon is interesting. He focuses very heavily on Democrats. Mm-hmm. Democrats are doing that. He says Democrats a whole bunch of times in that post, and Democrats aren't real. First of all, right? The line between Democrats and Republicans is super muddy. Here in Colorado, it is a absolute show. The local party constructs, they will fight about things like how should we fight fentanyl? Right. And they'll do real battle on it. But when it comes to looking at our elections, they're 100% locked. Their arms are locked. They're on the same team. You have bipartisan consensus on our elections being the gold standard, which is how it's bullshit. That it is a uniparty, that the distinction is bullshit is what I mean.
It's interesting with the way this is being received. We've talked about Emerald Robinson a number of times over the last couple of weeks, just because she is the person with Patrick Byrne rolling out the whole Venezuela steals everybody's election story and Nicolas Maduro must go and we must go to war and destroy these people. Well, she posted about the Tina Peters pardon, and she said, the only question is what took Trump so long? what took Trump so long?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very strange question to be asking, especially from that point of view. And it makes me think that he did this to short circuit that narrative device that they would have been able to use at some point as a cudgel against Trump. Why hasn't Trump pardoned her? Why hasn't Trump pardoned her? Look what's happening to this poor woman. And I'm not saying nothing bad is happening to her. I don't know. When a situation starts like that as part of the cyber symposium, that's just a major attention grab op. That entire weekend, Mike Lindell was going to release the evidence of and that was all that was going to bring the whole thing down. All the eyes were on that. And the big story of the weekend was the Tina Peters thing. And then Mike Lindell's story about being physically assaulted in the hotel.
Yeah, that's right. And we talked, I think the last time I was on DPH during the Lindell trial, we talked about this at that point. But the PCAP story and the Mesa County Images stories are very interesting to me because they started around the same time, around the early 2021, Jan Feb 2021. The operation to engage Tina Peters and take these images in Mesa County, as well as the operation to engage Mike Lindell and amplify this, packet capture, hammer and scorecard message. Those operations, and I believe they're operations, they began around the same time, give or take a couple of weeks. They ran in parallel with each other throughout the year 2021, and they kind of converged and became related stories at the cyber symposium. And a lot of same people involved in both of those stories, which I find interesting. So then it's like a question of, I've obsessed about this over the years, right? So I get to the point, the question is to me, okay, are they good guy operations? Or are they bad guy operations? And I still don't have a satisfying answer to that. And this whole thing this week makes it even muddier for me. I think that I'm leaning towards, Chris, what you said, that Trump is front running this. One of the things that's interesting is you pull up the screen I shared, we have the pardon now that Trump put out. Hang on, I lost my window here. And it's, executive grant of clemency, full and unconditional pardon for those offenses she may or may not, she has or may have committed or taken part in related to election integrity and security during the period from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021. And on the second page here, you can see it says done at the City of Washington in the District of Columbia this 5th day of December in the year of our Lord 2025 and of the independence of the United States, the 250th. Why that's really interesting to me is that so he signed the pardon for Tina Peters on December 5th. The letter from Peter Tickton to President Trump was dated December 6th. And he announced the pardon on December 11th. So the public facing things on this were the 6th and the 11th, but the actual pardon itself was signed on the 5th. Also, he has not attempted to pardon her for state crimes. He doesn't mention state crimes at all. He does mention a domain of federal crimes that's very interesting. And a friend of mine called me after the announcement of the pardon came down and said, do you realize that Tina Peters is now the only official in the state of Colorado that has been pardoned for what happened to destroy election records and to the cover-up of the November 3rd, 2020 election? A lot of people participated, whether knowingly, wittingly, or otherwise. A lot of officials participated. And Tina Peters has been pardoned for it. None of the rest of them have. I think that's interesting.
Man,
do you have any thoughts about let's pull this up again. People might notice where it says the 5th. I don't know if you can zoom in on that on your end, Ashe, at all, but it looks like it was.
I can't, but I can save it and pull it up in a way where we can.
Okay. It looks like it was handwritten. The 5 is handwritten, and that is just so strange. And so the timing is off. Tickton wrote the letter asking for him to pardon her on the 6th. Is that correct?
Yeah. The letter is dated on the 6th.
But I'm summarizing the substance of his letter properly.
Yeah, on the 6th, he sends that 9-page letter that details. It's the letter that Stephanie Lampert wrote for him, and we know that because he said that on Bannon. It's kind of her. She's brilliant. This is her work product. It's just my name on it because I'm Tina's attorney or whatever. But it's, goes through sort of all of the things they're trying. She should be a federal election witness, cruel and unusual. Her conditions are terrible, but also you actually do have the right to pardon. And that itself is a funny thing because it comes down to the pronouns that the United States uses, which I just think is hilarious. I think the writing on that is just hilarious.
It is a great, we have seen some great writing lately for sure. Go ahead, Burning Bright.
I mean, I don't really know, like, Ashe has been following this for years and is obviously very close to it. I don't have an informed opinion on, who committed what crimes or not. But yeah, the way, I guess for me, I really observe how Trump handles these things. You're both pointing out the timing of his announcements. This sounds stupid, but this was a couple of months ago. I think I brought it up in our private chat. The last time Trump truthed about Tina Peters, he was like, what they're doing to Tina is awful. She's a very old and weak woman, and like put it all in caps, like at the end of his message. And I was just like, man, like if I was Tina or her representation, I would not look at these Trump posts leading up to this pardon as flattering or like good-natured or feeling like a guy talking about one of his close allies. He's like, man, what they're doing to that old, like, wretched hag there in Colorado is really fucked up. His language is weird, the way he's talking about her at that time. And to me, adjacent to this, going back a few years, I think, as you've talked about a lot, Ashe, and Brian for sure, if there's been attempts to get MAGA people in trouble, specifically media figures and or activists, for lack of a better term, like real earnest MAGA people, it's mostly revolved around the election. It's mostly revolved around the November election. And I would include in that January 6th, because really the whole impetus behind the narrative of J6 was disenfranchised MAGA voters. Now, obviously, this whole network and everybody here believes to varying degrees our elections are fake and gay, and it needs to be addressed, and that the November 2020 election was stolen. So that's a given. But it also seems like there were a lot of poison pills in that. And I remember the very first Badlands conference that we did in Arizona, we had certain figures there that literally were scoffing at the things we were saying on the Power Hour about elections being fake. And then I was confronted personally by these figures after the panel who told me that you're not doing enough. And when I asked them what they meant in the context of election fraud, they said, you have to tell people to do something about the elections. These are very prominent figures that have orbited this specific narrative in Colorado, although this was Arizona people. But I have never trusted people involved in these things. I have never trusted the extremely famous martyrs in the U.S. election fraud narrative, because many of those martyrs tell people like us to make our rhetoric more and more and more extreme. And it seems like anybody on the orbits of these figures ends up getting sued into oblivion by all the worst people in the world. So,
Ashe.
Yeah, well, not just that, but I mean, there's a lot of people that have dealt with this kind of stuff. And I don't know what the deal is with Tina. And in fact, it could be, to your point about like the only person being pardoned here, maybe she got wrapped up in one of these kinds of things, right? But anyway, that's why, like, there's been frustration a few years ago, even in our audience, of like, why aren't you guys saying this? Or why aren't you saying this? Why aren't you boosting this person or that person? And then you wait a couple years and it's like, well, a lot of this stuff ends up not maybe being what it looks like at first blush.
It's also quite strange that people want us to say the thing that they're hearing other people say. It's like, hey, I heard this person say this. Why aren't you saying it too? Well, because I'm a different person than that person. I have different thoughts than that person has. To your point about Trump's the things that he had said about Tina Peters before, her physical condition right now is one of the things that I have heard discussed because, you know, she's in prison and her health is declining. Maybe Ashe knows more about this, but that's what I've heard people talking about. So again, if Trump is preempting stuff with perfect information, you know where the story's going. He can put out the story pieces that they plan to make hay with later on. He can put them out early. I've been calling this a false start for many years. You put that out there. He's already started the thing. It doesn't go anywhere. When they try to put it out 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the line, nothing.
Yeah. To the point about say the things, that's been it's been crazy. Going back to Patrick Byrne not coming on the show last Friday, and then there was some response to that on X, formerly Twitter, and I put out a thread with my questions. I have questions about this. Now you're CIA. Okay. What does that mean for all of these things? And I followed Patrick Byrne's story since that reawaken that he did where he talked about bribing Hillary Clinton. I think that was the first time he told that story. And I've kind of followed what he's done. One of the things that I've liked about him is that his story has been consistent from the first time I heard him tell it up until about last week. His story has been consistent. And it's one of the reasons that I kept listening. The amount of people who came to me in the wake of that and basically said, you need to watch, his latest movie. You need to read his book. You need to do this. You need to do that. I'm going, hang on a second. And like, I followed him before that because the deep rig thing, right? Mm-hmm. That was blog posts before it was a book and a movie. It was on his, I forget what he calls his site. It's the same site that was paying everybody in 21. But the business of what that site is, according to his J6 testimony. But but Patrick Byrne is a patriot, right? Like you can't question this story because we know Patrick and we like him. And the same thing with Emerald. I know Emerald. I like Emerald. I think she's a nice, a good person. We've had great conversations about the stuff that's going on, but you're telling me a story that's bullshit. And there are specific parts of it that to me scream of bullshit. And oh, by the way, in the middle of this story, we're now getting, well, actually I'm CIA and all that stuff I said before, there was a little fibbing in there. But I'm not going to tell you which parts were fibs, which parts aren't fibs, but there was a little fibbing in there. And, but you can totally trust me now because of the credibility that we've built that all based on all of those stories I told you that now are maybe a lie, but I'm not going to tell you which parts. And you're not allowed to question that. I said, I think it was on your show on the Wednesday DPH, I did a rant of I'm pretty sure that Patrick Byrne's greatest supporters are boomer white conservative ladies, which is weird to me because he's never been conservative. And he's not. He's also never really been a fan of the president. He, is proud of not having voted for him. And while he said at certain times when it was politically expedient that he was endearing to him, he hasn't ever been a full supporter of the president. Actually, he's a critic. He's the one of the leading voices of the dummy Trump theory. Oh, that Trump, he's just such a dummy. He can't surround himself. Can't find good help. He's just always got the wrong people. It's Taj Blanche's fault now. It's Pam Bondi's fault now. It's whoever's fault now. There's always this. That is the same thing that we were being told in the wake of the deep rig White House meeting in 2020. These things matter. I don't know how much they matter. I don't, can we just turn off this story? I mean, most people probably can. I can't because I'm fully fucking obsessed with it. But Chris, to your point, here's what that looks like. And it is normal for them to write it in. This one's weird because it looks like he wrote over something and I can't really figure out what it is. But yeah, I went back and looked at a few of them because I wanted to see if that independence of the United States was a different language. And it is not. They've all said that.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be maybe the seventh there. So something you just said, right now we're being told that there is a MAGA civil war. And this MAGA civil war has all come about because Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson are or are not feds, and they're arguing about the Jews. And then we have the Charlie Kirk trauma event, and that is totally unsolved. Candace Owens is trying to solve it in a new way every week or so. Erica Kirk is on a book tour for a book that Charlie Kirk wrote about being Judeo-Christian and throwing his phone in the junk drawer. And that is
her story, though, isn't it? That's not Charlie. I don't think we can. We don't know necessarily that that's Charlie's story. That's the story Erica is telling. I'm also going to read that book because I think the Sabbath itself is given to us by God because it's for our good. It has been exploited and used as a cudgel by multiple religions, most notably the Jews, but also Christians like to use legalism, which is what Jesus came to destroy. But I don't know that we need a book tour, and the messages that are being told by everybody in that orbit are agenda driven, I think. Certainly.
Right. And she's out there trying to push legislation as well. She's just blanket media coverage right now. Andrew Colvett, the understudy of Charlie Kirk, was on a podcast with Ross Douthat from the New York Times yesterday or the day before. We had... Who is the other character? Oh, Matt Walsh on Tucker Carlson. Yeah. All of this MAGA Civil War thing.
That was very brave.
Yeah, right. When you were talking about the Emerald Robinson, Patrick Byrne segment, there are all these different kind of factions with different viewpoints talking about how Trump is a dummy, Trump is wrong. If MAGA is going to stay together in order to win the midterms next year, well, we need to take this viewpoint, or we need to take this viewpoint. We need to help this group or this group. We have to stop saying this. We have to stop saying this. This group has to stop talking all together. This is all of conservative media right now. This is all they ever talk about. Or conservative media, quote unquote. But that blows my mind. That is just a perspective that they are dealing. So what are these stories when you understand that they are being told from that perspective, seemingly for that reason?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I think that there is an aspect of this that reveals themselves, and that's this: MAGA is not a party. It's not it's not the new Republican Party, and it's never been a monolith. When you're hanging out in a MAGA, if you think about like being at a GART, and there's there's lots of variations of this, but when you're in a true kind of MAGA environment in real life with people, it's often marked by debate and contention about certain issues, and maybe there's some of the hero worship of different figures. I think we've dealt with a lot of that, but MAGA has always been a coalition. And I feel that quite a bit here in Colorado, because the MAGA coalition in Colorado is pronouncedly not Republican. It is the libertarian. So half the state here is unaffiliated. The majority of the Republican Party that's still affiliated with them are disillusioned with who they have. There is certainly a civil war happening in the establishment Republican Party. And I think that's policy driven, but I also think that's very small. It's about 20% of the population, the establishment, or the Republican Party at all in Colorado is 20 to 25% of the electorate, 20 to 25% Democrats, and then 50% unaffiliated. The people making the change, the people showing up to testify for things, the people that are, talking about Tina Peters in anything other than threat to democracy speech. And Tina Peters is a threat to democracy is a both Democrat and Republican talking point in the state of Colorado. The middle is the group that is truly America first. That's what I define as the MAGA coalition. Trump has always won elections by going outside of the Republican Party. He has, majority. You got your never Trumpers and your whatever those other people are. But you have coalition of people that are, we're otherwise outside of the tents. And I think that's how they funnel them. The pundits, who are party driven folks, everybody's still all of the voices are still looking at this as kind of a false binary left right divide, and I just think that's fake.
Yeah, I mean, for several years, part of it is probably being Chris. I always say Chris and I are the token former liberals at Badlands, but I do think that that grants certain advantages, maybe maybe there's some disadvantages in some ways, but one of the advantages that I've been talking about, Kyle and I used to go back and forth on this on Defected years ago of what Trump's end goal was specifically with regards to the party system, specifically the Republican Party. I'm not saying he's wrong about it, but we used to disagree on the show about I would like to see either the direct or probably soft power sort of dissolution of the party system. And he was arguing that he thinks Trump's history shows that he's more likely to try to restore the Republican Party into what maybe it was originally supposed to be. I used to think that there was no way that was happening. I've seen enough statements out of Trump to doubt my own instincts of where he's going with it. So what Trump's intentions are with the Republican Party, I don't know. He certainly talks about them a lot. He certainly still engages in the left and the Democrats are going to get you. But all I can do is try to look at it from a first principles perspective. And the first principles of that are absolutely retarded. And as we're seeing in 2025, this is why, right? When you get, I'm not concerned about the midterms from a who's going to get more fake votes counted in an election scenario. To me, the false binary that you point out there, the idea of anchoring ourselves as a movement to the Republican Party grants narrative cover for two really bad scenarios. One is, maybe plan A, rug the midterms, rug the 2028 election, give it to the left and say it's because MAGA was a split. The Republicans were a split coalition. There's your narrative cover right there, right? Scenario B is more believable and therefore worse to me, which is an establishment Republican or a new breed establishment Republican that comes up out of the TP USA tent or something adjacent to it, unites the Republican coalition, defeats the other MAGA influencers in the battle space, gets the most YouTube likes, and becomes the real winner of the fake narrative. All of which is to say, all of that is predicated on this adherence to Republicans good, Democrats bad. And the reason I've been really direct about that, even with our audience, is because I have sensed for years this kind of like this thing under the surface, even of a lot of Badlanders, when I'm like, yeah, well, you guys are retarded too. You guys meaning traditional conservatives, just as bad as the Democrat thing. And I think there's an undercurrent of like 90% of MAGA that's like, well, I get what you're saying. We learned our lessons with Romney and McCain and the Bushes and this person, that person, this person, that person. Like every single Republican you could ever fucking name is a criminal and a traitor to the United States, besides Donald Trump, who is not a Republican, as you just pointed out. Or you pointed it out with Byrne. But they have this undercurrent of like, they really just want to be able to root for the Republicans again. Like, they really just want the Patriots to be good again. Like, as a New England Patriots fan, it's like, they're good again. Let's forget all that shit that happened with Belichick and Brady. It's my team, right? We can root for them again. And I think we're seeing in the battle space right now the consequences of that, which it's like, well, what kind of Republican are you? It's like that, what's that guy, Jesse Plemons meme from Civil War. What kind of American are you? Yeah. What kind of Republican are you? Are you a Nick Fuentes Republican, a J.D. Vance Republican, a Palantir Republican, a Peter Thiel Republican, a Tina Peters Republican? Like, what sort of Republican are you exactly? Because there's no such thing, is really what everybody needs to grow up and get through their heads. And hopefully, to put a positive bow on this, I think maybe sometimes Trump's reluctance to really engage in the firefights that's going on right now in the MAGA sphere is because he wants them all to destroy themselves, fighting over the scraps of something that will effectively cease to exist in the near future.
Yeah, I love how you just ended that, because it set me up for what I wanted to talk about anyhow, which is I kind of think about this as like an elimination tournament at this point. We have watched all of these influencers grovel as hard as possible online for 5 or 10 years now in this rat race to be the next voices And, I know that We Are the Media Now thing has been, from the Q community, we used to kind of adopt that a bit on Badlands in the early days. But I don't know why anyone would want to be the mainstream media. Why would you want to replace the mainstream media so that you can tell people what to think? Can't we just admit that none of us know what the hell is happening? Because this is the weirdest thing that has ever happened by far. Like we can do our best to figure out what's going on. We can use first principles, be responsible about the evidence that we are laying out, and be open about our reasoning, be open about our biases, and talk about all that. But I don't want to tell people like some incident happens, or we're told that an incident happens in the morning, and an hour later, I have to go out and say the same thing that 50 other podcasters are going to say. And then it's just a contest about who can emote about it the right way. And so we have all these people who haven't bothered telling the truth about anything for years and years. None of these people even admit that our elections are fake and that they're fraudulent and that they're rigged. You can even soften that as much as you want, and virtually none of them talk about it at all. Tucker says
stop
every now and
suppressing
then.
turnout, Chris. Why are you suppressing turnout?
Right. We're still stuck there. And so, none of them have talked about anything that might be going on behind the scenes for the last 4 years with Joe Biden. Now we're getting the auto pen story to cover up the fact that Joe Biden's presidency was fake and that the establishment just went along with it the entire time. And so all of these people that have been operating in this false reality, in this parallel universe that is meaningless and is now being shown to be meaningless, they're all trying to scale their way back into something that is more grounded and more attached to a reality. None of them are going to be able to do it. None of them have any idea what's going on. They haven't had the thoughts about everything that has happened over these last few years, taking any of that into account. So right now we're just watching them eliminate one another, and it's just a circular firing squad at this point.
Yeah, certainly for the TV character versions, right? The influencers or the mainstream media. But when I think about the audiences and, the normies, yes, but also the people that think that they're, truthers, but still have this kind of, well, if we can just get back to where we can trust the Republican Party again, then we'll be in really good shape. BB, to your point about, I don't know if Trump is trying to revive the Republican Party or deal with it in some way. I don't think so. If we go back to his inauguration speech, 2017 inauguration speech written by Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, right? That was what I view as the strategy. Here's what we're doing over, this is what we're doing. We're taking power from Washington, D.C., and we're giving it back to the people. Does that just mean the government interest? Just we're taking it from the Congress and we're giving, well, no, I don't think. I think it means K Street. And I think it means the media apparatus. And I think it means the power centers that have kept this in place. And there is no bigger example than that, than the parties. The parties have to go. You have to dismantle that construct because it is, and George Washington talked about this, right? It is an additional layer of bureaucracy sitting between the people and their rights, sitting between the people and their liberty. That is this football team construct. Well, if I hope, like you were saying, I hope the Patriots are good this year. I guess I'll root for them either way, but probably not going to watch the playoffs or whatever, right? Like it's this, that's not self-governance. That's cheering for someone to come and save you and for someone to say the things that you agree with and make you feel all warm and fuzzy. And that's how we got here. So I think the parties have to go.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's also partly what you just said there, Ash, is it's a humiliation ritual too, to me. We've been talking about for a couple of years, or for the last year, like who's, you even hear terminology in the Politico media of who's on the bench, right? Like who do the Dems have on the bench? Ooh, is it Gavin Newsom? Is this person? Is that person? Take deep state and all that stuff out of your head. Even if these were all earnest candidates, like for the elections ahead, what we're de facto doing in this kind of a system is priming these guys for like future runs. It's like we're talking about football teams again, like, oh, well, you know, this is the defensive coordinator. He's probably going to be interviewing with a few teams for head coaching jobs in the offseason. And it becomes this carousel in the professional sports leagues where, you know, you get the impression that if you took some, like, I know this is controversial in this community, but like if you took some incredible disembodied AI algorithm and you were like, analyze who the best 32 football coaches in the country are, do you think it would be the 32 coaches that coach NFL teams? It probably wouldn't be one of them. Like if you actually had some sort of objective measure, who is the best at coaching NFL games? It's probably not those guys. How did those guys get the jobs? They like worked their way up. They were this coordinator, that coordinator. They knew this guy. They worked in this college program. They knew that guy. It's all nepotism, right? And even if you take away all conspiracy theory, our political system de facto works that way. And even MAGA would be forced to admit that it works this way because of the way they all talk about JD Vance. Yeah. Whether you like JD Vance or not, the fact of the matter is he hasn't done anything of value or worth in American politics in any sense of government at all. What JD Vance has done the equivalent of podcasts in front of defunct world leaders and illegitimate world leaders, repeating things Trump says, but watering Trump rhetoric down from about a 10 to a 6.5.
To acceptable levels.
Goes on subjects entirely.
Yeah.
Avoid subjects, goes on pre-approved podcasts that are all pre-taped, says the same things every single time, and not meant to turn into a JD Vance bash session. It's just that if you actually were to ask people, why, really, first principles wise, why do you think JD Vance is the guy in 2028? The truth is, you think he's the guy because he's associated with Donald Trump. You don't actually think, you don't know what his opinions are. You don't know if he'd be good at anything. You don't know that there's a million other Americans that could probably do that job 10 times better than him, but he has been anointed narratively as the heir apparent. And I'm saying that whether or not Trump codifies that narrative, because eventually I think part of this discussion comes down to your point about the 2017 speech, Ash, totally agree with you that that's like a real anchor point that I like to look back on too, of anytime I feel bad about maybe Trump's rhetoric or the shit he has to navigate. We got to return to that at some point. And if we run the risk of pissing off or upsetting the plan, as Chris always says, if we run the risk of stopping what can't be stopped by saying, you know, I kind of like to not just have JD Vance be anointed as my king 8 years in advance because he ran in a fake election next to a guy who basically ignores the fact that he exists most days of the week. But unfortunately, 90% or more of the MAGA base, they want that not because they think it will objectively be better, but because it means they get a better chance at winning, feeling like they're winning. Their team is still winning. One of their guys is still winning. Like, we got Vrabel back. He was part of the old Patriot system. JD Vance was in the Trump system. He's a system quarterback. So, you know, again, I think most of this audience is beyond that kind of stuff. But it'd be amazing for most Badlanders to go to like another MAGA event and start daring to question something like a figure that that's been anointed as one of our heirs apparent. And the looks you're going to get talking to normie MAGA should kind of show you, unfortunately, where we're at.
Yeah, the giving power back to you, the people. If the people want to have the power back, and everybody expresses that they want the power to go back to the people, well, the people have to be able to handle that power because it is considerable power. And the number of people that I would trust to handle that power is rapidly approaching zero. You know, I mean, there's very few who I even think have any idea of what's going on any sort of higher level other than just managing the system as it is, trying to put their opinions in place of the opinions that are currently guiding the system, or their brand or their look or their style, their fashion, whatever way you might want to think about it. This is one of the most frustrating things I think about playing secret white hats and secret black hats all the time and trusting a character because he was near another character who you also trust because that character was near a character. And you and I talked about this a little bit the other night, Burning Bright. But, you know, there are these people who will get upset if one of these characters is challenged. And that's fine. You know, we don't know what's in these people's hearts. Yeah. If they are running some super special, super secret Psyop in order to save the country, and they are the greatest patriots ever and the best super spies of all time, and we just can't tell, well, then, if that turns out to be true, we can apologize to them at a later date. What we know right now is that they're not telling the truth, okay? And so if people are going to control things, well, those people better be laser focused on figuring out what is true and how we can center our lives in reality, take care of ourselves, take care of our family, take care of our community. And then if we are able to go into politics and make decisions on behalf of other people because those people want us to make decisions for them, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. What we can't do is sit around saying, well, I trust that guy even while he's lying to me. And you know what? I'm going to convince other people to trust that liar too. That's absolutely crazy. And that is indistinguishable from what they're already doing. Like, that's the situation we have. Hey, trust the Democrats because we know that they're the super secret good guys. Yes, we can see that they're lying, but it's better than letting those Republicans win. We need to have them win. I mean, I've been talking about this shit for 3 years, so I'll get off the soapbox. But at some point, we have to reckon with this stuff and reconcile what our beliefs are, because there are other things to focus on besides what's on TV today. I mean, it is unbelievable to me that whenever I talk to someone out there in the world who doesn't follow this stuff nearly as much as we do, all they can talk about is Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk's weird, creepy whisper lady.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it took me a second to get that. Yeah, so I think that there is, like, if we zoom out from the, you know, specific story we're talking about, it does go to this mindset among the American people that there is at some point, and the way the stories were told about the history of America are not this. So I'm not entirely sure when it inverted. Maybe it was post World War II, maybe it was before that, but we became this very consensus driven society where the consensus reaching consent, and over time that gets to a place that I would call like making harmony into an idol. Being, you don't want to be contentious. Wait, are you questioning Patrick Byrne? That's Emerald. You can't question Emerald. Erica Kirk, are you really gonna say bad things about Erica Kirk? All of these things, right? You don't trust Candace. You don't trust Andrew Klobuchar. You don't trust these people. No, actually, I don't trust. I trust Trump to an extent, because if Trump's ideas shifted and he started doing things that were very counter to what he promised us, I would not be, defending those things. And I've been in that position several times of all of us have, of challenging and questioning things that the president is doing. But this is a very dangerous mindset. Consensus is a very dangerous thing because it is a compromise on what is right. And the position that we're in right now is not a place where we want to compromise what's right. Certainly not for harmony. Certainly not for unity, right? To get to a point where we're not, we got to fight the left. So we all have to agree, and let's let the new Turning Point USA people decide what that is. And we'll just march behind them. Mm-hmm. No, that's un-American. America is a battlefield of ideas. It always has been. The story that we're told, the America that I believe in, right, is that we are able to battle it out on ideas and figure out the right way and pick the right way. And this mindset goes to very dark places. If you look at what is happening in Abu Dhabi with the Abrahamic family house, you have the people of the book coming together from a religious standpoint. We're just going to we're going to learn from each other. We're going to share information. We're going to have this great place of peace and harmony. And the stuff that we can't agree on, we'll set it aside and we'll have this wonderful harmony and unity around the things that we can agree on. Well, what they can't agree on? Jesus. So he's out. But we have this peoples of the book. This is the all of your religious authorities are here. You've got a synagogue and what's the Muslim place called?
Quran. Oh,
no.
a mosque.
a mosque. Thank you. The place, not the book. Yeah. And you have a church. You just don't have Jesus, but it's fine because Jesus would want us to have harmony. Absolutely not. That's the end state for me, right? That's the worst case. It's why I give a shit, because I am not going to bend the knee to some other religious authority ever. And I feel like I've been, I've early childhood Christian rapture trauma and shit. So I I've been preparing for this my whole life, but it's the same thing that we're seeing in politics. Well, if we can just, come together, and I do think that this same dynamic is happening on the so-called left with the DSA and kind of more, mainstream moderate Democrats and whatnot. We're seeing this fracture between people who want to keep the power structures the way that they are and people that want to, maintain power. And Burning Bright, to what you were talking about, it's their turn, right? They've come up through the ranks of politics or of whatever institution that they're a part of, and they've paid their dues, and they've gotten to the point, and they might get that committee assignment or whatever next time. And if we rock the boat too much, if we change things too much, no, we can't change it yet. Wait until after my turn, and then we'll change it, and it never gets changed.
It's like the gamification of politics. Like, it reminds, literally, I mean that literally, in terms of like Chris and I used to play video games a lot, like the RPG-ification. Like, oh, you've gained this many experience points because you ran and failed a bunch of times before. So now de facto, regardless of what your ideas are, circa 2028, and whether or not you are objectively going to help the country, you're next, because you've attained this many experience points. And one small note on this Candace Owens thing: there's a million headlines you can find like this, but I thought this one was particularly great from Axios. A cacophony of grifters, MAGA infighting erodes real world power. So the reason I highlight this isn't to say that this is automatically true. I don't think the MAGA power is being eroded. I agree with what you said earlier, Ashe, that it's a coalition, it's an ideology, it's a movement. I don't think it's any weaker than it was 6 months ago. But if you're looking for like who benefits, cui bono, who's pushing the MAGA infighting, it's the mainstream media. It's Axios. You could find an article about this from Politico, from CBS. There's one from CBS right here. Erica Kirk has one word for Candace Owens, who's been peddling conspiracy theories. And stop is the one word, guys. That's how serious it is, right? These are...
She's told people to stop a bunch of times, and nobody is stopping, just FYI.
I didn't share that one. But I wanted to show one more thing there. So this was the other article on CBS. Million of these, right?
Hold on. One word.
Don't.
Yep, she's very serious. Stop it. Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop. And going back to this one, it's kind of funny you mentioned that word, Ashe. I usually do a search for the word. Whoops. Where are we at? There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. One word comes up over and over again in this very serious op-ed about the MAGA infighting from an outside perspective. This is the mainstream trying to understand the MAGA mind. So they went to the experts on MAGA, who are the experts on MAGA according to the mainstream media? Turning Point USA.
Sure.
And anybody who represents them. So of course they went to get a quote from CJ Pearson, who is a MAGA influencer, I guess. And CJ said, I think the movement is wholly consumed right now on personality clashes. That's a recipe for electoral doom. And that's unfortunate to see the unity that we saw after Charlie Kirk's death dissipate so quickly. And I don't know, I would just tell you
probably
that
because the unity was immediately politicized, and all of a sudden, it would, yeah. I mean, I think there was a good amount of empathy, like legitimate, authentic empathy, immediately following Charlie Kirk's death. It was immediately politicized and used as a weapon, and it became obvious very quickly that it was being used for political power, whether that was inside of Turning Point or people that are using it, candidates that are running for something in 2026 that are, on I was friends with Charlie, or I did this with Charlie, or I came up in Turning Point, whatever. It's now like the top association for street cred in the Republican political circles. and it's fake. It is, you know, I think it's really gross. The way that it's being used. I also don't, you know, one of the things that's interesting about the Candace Turning Point beef is that Candace was still listed as the Brexit leader for Turning Point USA after Charlie died. I just checked to see if she was still up because I haven't looked in a while, and she's not anymore. They took it down. But while he was still alive, you know, she was still listed as a part of their organization, and now she's, you know, enemy number one. I don't know. I haven't followed it in a while. So I had a brief update from Jordan last night, but it was, you know, lacking in details.
All right, let's take a second. We have a Rumble ad and we have soft disclosure. We have to get to those, and then let's go ahead and switch gears.
Soft disclosure just dropped new favorites for the season. The lotion, your 5-ounce favorite, is still here. And now we've added full 11-ounce bottles. New lavender tea tree deodorant, clean, calm, and effective. New tallow bars, chamomile lemon rose and naked. Rich moisture that actually works. And now the lineup is complete. Beard oil in unscented and spiced vanilla. Palo lip balms, available in chamomile mint, vanilla, naked, and vanilla tangerine. Palo Bar Minis for pocket-ready hydration. Available in vanilla coffee and naked. And finally, lavender vanilla lotion. Clean, calm, and made to work. Visit softdisclosure.com. Use code Badlands and get 15% off. Soft Disclosure, for truth you can gift.
You both have beards. You using the beard oil?
I don't use any sort of oil.
I just received some beard oil that I have not used yet.
Yeah, it's good stuff. My husband doesn't like to use products like at all, and I'm like been making him, you know, because we have beard oil now. That's very exciting. So, but he likes it. I think he says he likes it. Good stuff though.
Hold that thought, guys. If you are watching or listening on Rumble, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Theoretically, at least, that is supposed to help us. And then we also have a Rumble ad. Elohitrum. If you or someone you love struggles with blood sugar and A1C, you need to hear this. It's well known the expensive meds and the popular shots have dangerous side effects. Well, Creator's Bounty has developed the perfect alternative. It's an herbal supplement called Elohitrum. Elohitrum is a 100% natural formula that is proven to dramatically lower your blood sugar and A1C. It uses 7 healthy ingredients, no stimulants, no junk. These 7 ingredients would cost you over $150 if you bought them all separately. But here's the best part. There are no bad side effects, only good ones. We're talking sugar cravings gone, inflammation reduced, and stable energy all day with 0 crashes. Seriously, most people are getting better results than they did on the harsh meds, but without the risk. Elohitrum is made in the U.S. at an FDA-registered facility, fully trusted, and is backed by a no questions asked 90-day money-back guarantee. The friendly folks at Creator's Bounty offer fast and free shipping 5 days a week from Oklahoma. Head over to creatorsbounty.com/rumble and take advantage of this special offer today. All righty then. Okay, so let's switch gears here a little bit. There was an article this week in the Wall Street Journal about the daring escape from what they say is Venezuela, but definitely is not, of Maria Corina Machado. And I want to first share this picture from the Wall Street Journal, and then we can get into the article a little bit. But of course, there's a paywall. Oh no, they unpaywalled it. You know,
they really want you to know.
They want you to see it when they unpaywall it. This was paywalled the other day. So there she is. What a lovely picture. Disguised and in danger, how a Nobel Peace Prize winner escaped Venezuela. And so I'm going to pull up just the segments of this. I think that we should.
Who was that little Cuban kid who the Dolphins saved?
Elian Gonzalez.
Yep,
Is this that she's trying to get in on some of that? I think it's been a while since we've had some little raft Cuban.
Speaking of that era, I think it was actually a few years before. I think it was Hugh Hewitt on Fox News yesterday or something, talking about how the Venezuela situation as it's happening now, and the idea that Trump is going to go in is a replay of the Manuel Noriega Panama invasion, which I believe was during the George H.W. Bush era. Ooh. So it's like he's doing our analysis for ourselves. We can just simply then go back and look at exactly what happened there and see how they're going to run this narrative to let the American people know, hey, look, here's how you got hoodwinked back then. And I think a lot of the stories that we're getting now, because they are just fake stories, they are narratives. If they are being put out by good people, well, it's to wake us up to what had happened before and how we were hoodwinked. Kind of gives us a second look at the story. That helps us see through all these layers, because now we don't trust the government anymore, as we should have never trusted. So I want to just do a little bit of this article, and then we can talk about this daring escape. The Venezuelan opposition leader was trying to get to Norway by Wednesday in time to receive the Nobel Peace Prize that she won for challenging Venezuela's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro. First, she had to get from the Caracas suburb, where she had been in hiding for a year, to a coastal fishing village where a skiff awaited her. Over the course of 10 nerve-wracking hours, Machado and two people helping her escape hit 10 military checkpoints, avoiding capture each time before she reached the coast by midnight, said a person close to the operation. And by the way, I didn't read this, but she was wearing a wig in disguise. And I have an unnamed source that let me know that it was those glasses
with the nose,
the huge nose and the mustache. That's how she
just one unnamed source, though.
10 military checkpoints. No, I had 3 or 4 unnamed sources. It's an unnamed number of unnamed sources.
Right.
She rested for a few hours, the person said, before the next leg of her journey, a perilous trip across the open Caribbean Sea to Curacao. She and her 2 companions set out on a typical wooden fishing skiff at 5 a.m., the person said, with strong
Patrick
winds
Byrne
and
piloted.
choppy seas, slowing them down. She had almost completed an escape that had been in the works for about 2 months. Like, since she won the award? I don't even think that was 2 months ago. So can someone look at when she was given the Nobel Peace Prize? Because if that was less than 2 months ago, I'm going to call bullshit here. And was carried out, it was carried out by a Venezuelan network that has helped other people flee the country, the person close to the operation said. The group said it made an important call to the U.S. military before they set out to sea, warning American forces in the region of the vessel's occupants to avoid the kind of airstrike that has hit more than 20 similar vessels in the past 3 months, killing more than 80 people. We coordinated that she was going to leave by a specific area so they would not blow up the boat. The Trump administration said it was aware of the operation, said people familiar with the matter, but the extent of its involvement was unclear. So Maria Corina Machado, the recent Nobel Peace Prize winner, risked her life, the life of others, an international incident, getting blown up as a potential drug boat. Then, by the way, she got to Bangor, Maine somehow, even though her Twitter a few weeks ago was saying that she was already in the U.S. And then she went to Norway, all of that to receive the Nobel Peace Prize and stage that photo shoot and seem extra daring. And now she's saying that they are going to bring democracy to Venezuela. She's still not sure whether or not she wants the U.S. to actually bomb Venezuela in order to achieve her democracy. And
peace.
We are supposed to believe all of this.
October 10th, by the way. So just 2 months. It does seem too like being on a wooden fishing boat is one of the most outside of Venezuela is one of the most dangerous places that you can be, right? A fishing skiff on the, going in or out of Venezuela. Why would they choose that as a couple months to plan her escape? You've got, planes, helicopters, scuba divers, all kinds, a yacht.
That's what they'd be expecting,
Something.
Ash. You're thinking inside the box. You got to think outside the box if you're going to escape all this kind of stuff.
Story would have been better with a storm, just saying.
It's, I think Chris has been saying stuff like this. I'd like to think that the central narrative has not always been this unbelievably retarded. This reminds me, I've brought it up a million times on the shows, but the skill observation chart, I can never find it when I want to, but essentially the idea is that the better you get at something, the worse you feel you are at it until your skill catches up with your observation abilities, right? So I often wonder if we've been doing this long enough where we look at a narrative like this, and back in October because keep in mind, as people watching the show understand, we've been saying this is going to be the narrative, not the whole daring escape by ship, by cover of darkness, but that she's being primed to be the superhero of the globalist establishment, and they're going to make her the next hero. Like, you can see all that stuff coming. So I often wonder if it's our observational abilities are heightened now, or if it has become way dumber. And this is where I still like to nurture my Patriot Ghosts in the Media Machine theories. Not to suggest that the person writing the Wall Street Journal article is a secret white hat, but more so, all these stories come down the wire. They come down from centralized sources. You can, if you have any questions about that, you just Google her with a keyword, escape, and you're going to see essentially the same 1,000-word article rewritten in 20 different ways, all put out within 38 minutes of each other across the mainstream media. Those are the 4 a.m. talking points that the Q drops made famous that alluded to. So I wonder about that, but I mean, this is the type of thing that if you believe it as written, it is absurd. And then to Chris's point there at the end, even if you take the whole story at face value, the fact that the establishment thinks this makes her come off well is incredible. It's like a matryoshka of humiliation. If you believe the story, you're an idiot. And if you think it's good, then you're even more so. Like, as Chris said, I mean, you expect me to believe, okay, let's say I believe it. You expect me to like you when you went to Norway? Like, you're going to save Venezuela, and you had to get to Norway for this photo op. If you just look up a list of Nobel Prize winners over the last 20 years, you haven't heard of all of them because they're just random fucking people. So yeah, it's incredible, and I don't know.
Well, that's part of the crazy part, though, is trying to sell us that the Nobel Prize is some sort of honor that we should bestow respect upon. That the globalist awards that they've been giving each other to essentially elevate certain causes, different scientific achievements that they're, using, like climate change shit, right? Climate change, the narratives and the peace prizes awarded with regards to climate change were used to expand globalism into every facet of our lives. That is something that I thought we'd realized, right? That the globalists are the bad guys, but we have a whole bunch of people out there saying, but she's a Peace Prize winner.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, why do I, she seems like a globalist, and the people who are propping her up, particularly right now, are definitely globalists. And I'm still not sure that I understand your distinction, Burning Bright, between the good reset and the great reset, but I think there's one reset, and it's still, happening. And I don't love that.
They're dueling resets, as Chris and I often talk about.
Yes, indeed. Let's talk about just how globalist she is. So this ghost of base Patrick Henry put this on our radar this evening and discovered that Maria Corina Machado is actually a Maurice R. Greenberg World Fellow at the Yale Jackson School of Global Affairs. So there she is. She's the class of 2009. Okay. So Yale World Fellow 2009. The man right next to her, his name is Carlos Vecchio. All right. And that name caught my eye because Brian showed this on Badlands Daily yesterday. And I don't mean to go through this entire video because unfortunately it's in Spanish, but it is subtitled. So I'm going to read these quickly. I won't go through the whole thing because it's a little bit long, but check this out. This is Maduro.
Ya le dimos la prueba.
He already gave them the evidence
al gobierno anterior,
to the previous government, and now we have handed over the evidence to the current government. Juan Guaido, David Smolanski, Carlos Vecchio, Leopoldo Lopez, Maria Corina Machado, and another group created a human trafficking network. And in this human trafficking network, they were taken through the Darien to the United States to a group recognized as criminals that in Venezuela were defeated. Because in Venezuela, we defeated that group of the Aragua train. We made him disappear. So that is Nicolas Maduro accusing Yale fellow Maria Corina Machado and Yale fellow Carlos Vecchio of operating a human trafficking network. And he's talking about this Cartel de las Soles thing, which is not an actual cartel. It is a journalistic shorthand for a CIA organized group that ran trafficking operations from back in the early 90s. Nicolas Maduro doesn't run them. He didn't start it up. None of that is the case. But all of these things are things that people believe to be true. They also believe that Maria Corina Machado won an election in Venezuela last year, except she didn't run in the election. Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia did. And the proof that he, quote unquote, won were exit polls done by the American firm Edison Research. and then receipts called actas. They're basically like voter receipts that suggest a large victory for Gonzalez Urrutia, but it's like just a small sample of ballot receipts provided by the opposition. And we are supposed to believe that this woman won an election and that she's going to be the new Venezuelan. She says it's going to be vice president because Urrutia is going to go in there. But Urrutia, of course, is the Venezuelan Joe Biden, and she is the Venezuelan Kamala Harris. And how anybody believes this bullshit is way beyond me.
And Chris, in the wake of that very real and not fake election that Urrutia won and that Maduro stole from him, who was protesting in the streets and lighting things on fire in Venezuela? Well, that would be Tren de Aragua, who then flooded into the United States and seemed to hole up in Ashe's hometown for some reason. They were like, we're going to Colorado.
At that election, when it was said that Maduro lost, they threw a big old party in Aurora.
Yeah.
We're shooting off guns and lighting shit on fire in the parking lot of a Target, I think it was.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, it's just their culture. They're just excited. Just be all right about it.
Bad.
But one thing that I think is important about that Maduro clip that you just, was probably overly obvious, but he's agreeing with Trump. He's reinforcing Trump's narrative that the rapists and murderers and terrible people in Venezuela were sent through the Darien Gap and came into our country. That part he's agreeing with Trump upon, pointing out who did it. We're always told it was Maduro and that he's run by, the cartels. And so it's the cartels doing it. But I mean, the cartels are globalists. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you do any research, and Joe Lang's written a bunch of pieces on the Badlands Substack for the last couple of years, all about the School of Americas and in the South America. But you can do your research on that, going back to Bush Sr., going back to the Reagan years. And it's all declassified that the Central Intelligence Agency was fomenting terrorism in South America, training terror groups to destabilize governments in South America to spread democracy, of course. And some of the techniques that they were teaching these people included torture, how to torture people while keeping them alive as long as possible, how to increase pain and suffering the most, how to make it so that, like, basically create a psychological net over a country where the idea of running afoul of one of these groups would be completely anathema to what anybody in these regions would even think of doing because of how horrific they actually were. We fucking taught them that. US Intel, in their own words, taught them how to do that because they were going after the regime of people like Hugo Chavez and everybody, probably an actual freedom fighter, you know, like name your guy, the previous Maduro. And then one more thing about Marina Corina Panuna Banca. If you want to look at, again, as Chris said, how globalist is she? Well, I want to assuage anybody's fears about whether or not the elections that she's been on the borders of have been fake. Thank goodness she's actually started in 2002 this NGO called Sumate, which is a Venezuelan volunteer civil association founded in 2002. It is an election monitoring group. It's an NGO whose stated aim is to promote the free exercise of citizens' political rights, the discussion of matters of public interest, etc. It will also lay to rest any conspiracies or whatever to know that the main funding partner of Sumate, the Venezuelan election integrity NGO, is the United States National Endowment for Democracy. So the entire, like this is the stuff where, you know, we're not going to be nice about this stuff anymore. If you're a MAGA person, or not even MAGA people, most of them are retarded, most normies are retarded. If you call yourself a truther, and you are openly cheering online for a National Endowment of Democracy funded election integrity expert with a fake backstory that mirrors Cuban life raft bullshit, who's been accused of human trafficking, to depose a regime to put her in power, then you haven't learned anything. You've gone all the way backwards. Like, this is and besides all the NGO rabbit holes most of you should have gone down by now, the number one, I would say, public enemy that Donald Trump has basically codified in the central narrative in 2025 is twofold. One, it's the cartels, which, you know, right? Define that however you want. Two, through no accident, it's the United States administrative state. It's the non-governmental organization superstructure. So every day, you're seeing statements come out of the Trump administration about NGOs, about the administrative state, and about cartels. And, you know, is all this related to the fact that the entirety of the mainstream media was putting out Trump Epstein narratives the same week that Tom Homan is saying we got 62,000 arrests of human traffickers at the southern border? The biggest human trafficking, the most human trafficking arrests in United States history have occurred in the last couple of months, and all the media and the truth community wants to talk about is Jeffrey Epstein.
I want to, speaking of the Yale thing, I have to share this wonderful clip.
Can you tell me about Paul Allen?
I'm at a loss. He was part of that whole Yale thing.
Yale thing?
Yeah, Yale thing.
What do you mean, Yale thing?
Well, I think for one that he was probably a closet homosexual who did a lot of cocaine at Yale thing.
What kind of man was he, besides the information you've just given?
I hope I'm not being cross-examined here.
You feel like that?
No, not really.
American Psycho is amazing. Okay, so shall we move on from Venezuela, or does anybody have any final comments?
Well, I would just follow up on Bernie Bright's point about the National Endowment for Democracy. It is not a coincidence, in my opinion, that this whole story is, you know, kicking up. The aid money has run out.
Yes.
And I think, you know, they had reserves for a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was, but we're starting to see a lot of people change their stories. We're seeing people get squirrely. We're seeing, you know, weird ops happen. And we didn't mention, wasn't her location in America?
Yeah, Chris mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, however much you're supposed to take from Twitter location information.
Yeah. One point on the funding, Ash, that this is my little pet theory with no sauce at all, is one of the other trends we've all commented on tonight and throughout the year is this kind of spin out going on in the influencer sphere, where they're all like rapidly both attempting to undermine Trump, as John's been pointing out a lot and Chris has been pointing out a lot, and in my view, rebranding. They're all going through these like sharp rebrand pivots. Does that have to do with NGO money running out? And I know that it's not like they punch in at Influencer Academy and they're like, here's my USAID check. But I think that money finds its way to people who then back these people. I just wonder. I wonder if we're going to get stories in the months ahead or in 2026 of sponsors or groups that have been behind some of these really, really famous YouTube podcasts among based and influential people.
You mean Turning Point USA?
No, I would never say that.
Former CIA podcasts, maybe?
Yep. Yeah. Or people invited to closed door meetings with Bibi Netanyahu and stuff like that. Who they're
under the Chatham
just telling
household.
us because they want us to know, not because they're afraid that that information might be coming out. Or a lot of closet homosexuals. Speaking of that, we're seeing some comms about that coming out there, and some of these guys don't hide it very well.
All right. Before we get out of here, I want to let Burning Bright enjoy himself some kind of victory lap. How a new Russia-China-U.S. network could work. This is Politico. A seemingly far-out idea pinging around Washington this week would have the U.S. stand up a new Core 5 group of countries, including China and Russia, bringing traditional adversaries closer and offering a sharp contrast with the G7. While that might have once seemed like a non-starter, some observers noted that it does have a Trumpian ring to it. And we can leave that off right there so as not to belabor it. I will let you take over for a moment, and then we should just read a couple quotes from Alexander Dugin on this, and then we can move on.
Oh, great. I didn't see this. I'm looking forward to that. So as far as I can tell, this report originally it originally came from a report by defense1.com. I've never even heard of them. I don't know how. I know that they're known in sort of the military media space. So that was their report, and they claim that there was an unpublished version of Trump's national security strategy document that ultimately was not chosen. We got the one that we got, and that is where this term, the Core 5, came from. Basic takeaways from that report from Defense One was that the original NSS, according to them, was even more harsh toward Europe. That was like, I've been loving that all week, just how Trump, totally cucked Europe in the NSS. According to them, the original version of this was much harsher on Europe, but what was even more signal is that it basically laid out, instead of being loyal to the classic alliance as we've known it in the West, we already have in mind a group of nations that we're actually going to, a group of sovereign nations that we're going to form an alliance with. And I don't know what sort of term they might use for that kind of a group, but apparently Core 5 is the one they were workshopping. This report was heavily denied by the Trump administration. They insulted the reporter. They insulted the report. They were like, that's stupid and retarded and not true. But what I really found interesting, the reason I think it's worth talking about, is that, I sent Chris the Politico link, because the Politico link is what was disseminated all across the media sphere in the last couple of days. All the Western media, from The Guardian to Politico to Wall Street Journal, ran reaction pieces to this. And even the headline there that Chris pulled up, like, how would a US-China-Russia network work? To me, they're gaming out what they're beginning to realize is going on. And obviously, I'm a broken record with the Sovereign Alliance, which apparently nobody wants to use those words. Fine. I think Core 5 is kind of a gay name, if that's what we end up with, but they're workshopping. You're seeing the globalist media, in my view, try to sort of get on the same page as each other narratively. Like, once this alliance that's obviously happening, once this starts being codified directly by leaders like Trump, Putin, Xi, Modi, once they drop the kayfabe completely, how do we start responding narratively to this kind of thing? I think that's part of what's going on. The one new little bit that I'll give Defense One or this whole story that I thought was interesting and makes sense to me was the inclusion of Japan. I've never included Japan in my kind of theorizing of the Sovereign Alliance, but they've had this leadership change over there. Takaichi is this, based red-pilled, they call her the female Trump of Japan. She's saber-rattling with China right now in the Taiwan Strait, but again, I think that's a lot of bullshit as well. I think it's interesting that Japan is being thrust into this this alliance, and I think it's probably true that if Trump has Japan on board, that is, if the hegemon, as we've described it and as I've written about it for the last few years, is truly isolated in this pincer move that I've been talking about since 2022, Japan would be a complete coup to take them out of that sphere, because they are in such a position of influence geopolitically, militarily, that could really fuck up any kind of alliance between the US and China. So if it's true that Trump has Japan on board with the Sovereign Alliance and Takaichi is our girl and is a Sovereign Alliance girl, that might explain to me why they're panicking even more so than they already were. I just think this is basically them just slowly boiling the frog of Europe and saying, like, we've already got the new multipolar system, figured out. It's just a matter of how long you guys want to keep denying that it's going to happen.
Okay, so let me just jump quickly to this Dugan article, and I will just go through a couple paragraphs here, and then we can have some final comments and then get to rants. I thought this was really interesting, and this is from the perspective of someone who's been an influential figure in Russia and been pushing multipolarity for a long time. He said, this is, if you will, the MAGA version of a multipolar world. That is exactly what U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was talking about at one time. It was part of the plans of MAGA ideologues such as Steve Bannon. It was supported and substantiated quite critically toward Trump himself by John Mearsheimer, an outstanding representative of American political realism. This is a cold, hard approach to the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty should belong only to the great powers, a new order of great powers. In other words, it is the American Trumpist version of a multipolar world, which differs quite significantly from the BRICS model. The first difference is BRICS does not include the United States or the West. It is built as an alternative to them. This is entirely logical because until Trump, America functioned as a stronghold of the globalist order of unipolarity. I have said before that a place for America within BRICS remains open, indeed, in a certain sense, reserved, but only for an America that breaks with globalization. And he said the second difference is that BRICS accepts civilizations that have not fully formed, skipping down. Therefore, the C5 is a serious proposal. Of course, it can be criticized. One can say that BRICS is better. This is what I think too. BRICS is better in every respect, except one. The United States is not in it. And as long as the US and the West are not in it, no one inside BRICS dares to truly challenge global hegemony head on. But here, Trump and MAGA make an interesting move. Instead of consolidating against us, join us in building multipolarity together. This is a matter of great seriousness and demands the highest level of attention. Let us see what can come of it. And to close out, he says the main thing is that this proposal contains no European Union, no globalists, no Soros, no Schwab, no Davos Forum, no Macron. They are all thrown into the trash heap together with Zelensky and Ukrainian Nazism. This really is a most fascinating moment when America is forced to recognize multipolarity, even if it offers its own version of it. And so I thought that was just pretty incredible that he was hitting all the points there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, and again, he's an influential thinker, we're told, for Vladimir Putin and everything. Who knows how many of these people are read in on ultimately the end game of these things, but I think there's enough tea leaf reading going on. If we can read the tea leaves, somebody like Dugin is much more connected to where those are pointing. But yeah, I mean, it's the globalist hegemon is out, and I think we're at the early innings of essentially the public translation of the Sovereign Alliance, and I think it's going to be translated largely through practicality. Like, that's the pragmatism is going to be the translation, and I think 2025, one of the core themes of Trump that he's really been piloting is that pragmatic approach to the future. Like, he's really taken a hammer to the idea of legacy alliances, legacy financial institutions, or legacy policies. And I think that's his inroad. He's not going to say we were super secret best friends the whole time and Europe is representative of the deep state. But I mean, he just, if there's anybody in the world that still doubts this is happening, his national security strategy names Europe as incompatible with American values and says it's not going to exist as a civilization if they keep it up. Like, I don't know how much more clear he can be. By the way, while he's still actively planning joint economic projects with both Russia and China, while secretly plotting World War III against them.
That's why Trump was a threat. In the most macro sense, this explains this. Kind of we're in transition second to third act of watching this play out, and I think that that it explains the outsized reaction to Trump. And it's easy to think about that in a domestic sense, right? That, the outsized reaction to Trump is because he's going to end Obamacare, or he's a threat to abortion, and he's whatever, choose your This really is a restructuring of world power. And, while you were talking before, BB, Chris put up that map of, me, Xi, and Putin, just like kind of dividing the world in those three. I am very anti-globalist. I think it's a failed experiment that has impoverished and impoverished the peoples of the world, and gave a moral justification to atrocities and the raping and pillaging of other nations, the resources that belong to the people of those nations. Well, we're just going to go in and take them, and all sorts of things. Brian and I read War is a Racket last week, which got me pretty fired up on the whole topic as well. But when you consider the power, and it's not just government power, it's not just corporate power, it is this public-private partnership global shadow governing structure that we've had for a long time, that uses corporations to drive societal change and behavior change, and uses banking to keep everybody in line and lockstep. Ending that is existential, and for Europe certainly. For the existing power structures, definitely, and I'm here for it. And it explains, if you look back at a zoom out and look back at this 10-year journey we've been on with President Trump, the fact that we're here right now having these conversations, and some people are freaking out about it, other people cheering for it. I will say, listening to you read Alexander Dugin, it sounded like you were reading Burning Bright. So
yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
Go ahead. No.
I was just going to say a couple more little things on this I just thought of. Number one, in that, again, we don't know if this report is true, right? But the narrative is being disseminated. In addition to those core five, which I don't know if I actually listed them off, but it was US, Russia, China. I've been calling that the Trinity. India and Japan. So Japan was the surprise to me, but a welcome one. They also mentioned, supposedly, 4 nations within the European Union that they see breaking ranks, and that they have an opportunity to carve out a new relationship with the United States, regardless of what the European Union says. And I nailed 2 of them. That's Hungary and Austria, they named, and the other 2 were... Yep, the other 2 were Poland and Italy. So again, who knows if this is true, but according to these sources, the U.S. Is particularly interested with making new agreements with those 4 nations in Europe that circumvent the Union. And that's kind of gone along with the lines of what I've been saying, that I think the Union's de facto power is crumbling before us. But when is the NATO and the EU kind of going to actually crumble? I think it's going to be within, and it's going to start with a couple of these countries just saying, fuck you, I'm out. And I think the Ukraine war is a catalyst for this. And the other point to Ashe's point there of why Trump was such a threat, I know this sounds obvious, but I think, maybe people forget about it. What was the relationship? What was the story that the entire apparatus weaponized against Donald Trump first? It was his potential relationship with Russia. The first thing that they weaponized writ large across the world was Donald Trump is bad because he is in a secret alliance with Vladimir Putin. And as I have been saying since I first created the Burning Bright name, Russia collusion was real. They knew it was real, and it's a good thing. And that's why they didn't just want to poison the well on Donald Trump. They wanted to let everybody know that Donald Trump is engaged in a secret plan to go against the West with Vladimir Putin. Turns out they were right, but it's taken us about a decade to get to the point where I think a lot of Americans are like, yeah, good.
And you mean collusion as in pursuing a common goal together?
Yeah,
not that Russia stole the election for Donald Trump.
Thematically, Russia collusion is real.
Just making sure that was clarified. Yeah. All right. So we need to get to wrapping things up. We have one more Rumble ad to do. Burning Bright, if you want to take a look and see if we have any Badlands boosts and get those pulled up. Guys, Rumble Premium, you've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite content creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium. Promo code STUDIO, no ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That's the deal. Okay.
We have a boost from 1027. Oh, what do you got?
Well, just so at the end of World War II, Russia was our ally, right?
Yep.
And now Russia's our. You think we can make it like it never happened?
Yeah, I mean it. Oh, Chris and I did the movie Patton months ago, and that's a little subplot in there of where at the end Patton is like, "Fuck them Ruskies," even though the other guys in the command are like, "But they kind of defeated Hitler." It's like, yeah, well, besides that, they suck. Yeah. 1027 JS sent $20 over as a boost and just said, "Thanks, guys."
You have to call him your fellow North Dakota.
Yes, fellow North Dakotan.
I don't think you can say that. I think it's appropriation.
Yeah, well, how about 1027 JS, one of 3 North Dakotans I own. I know.
You own them. You can just scoop them up.
Gosh, it's getting late.
They're on the cheap.
No is the word I was looking for. Wow.
Badlands Media does not endorse owning people.
Yeah.
Well.
On American soil.
Let's keep our options open, Ashe. All right. Golden age. There's lots of opportunity coming up.
Anything could happen.
Oh boy.
Right. Europeans are going to need some work with the way things are going, and I'll give it to them, unpaid, of course.
All right. So that's it for the boost. I think we have a bunch of rants lined up here, and they all line themselves up. Damn it. I can't see his first name. Oh, Keith O. Higgins. I should have known. If election denial is a form of voter suppression, isn't penis denial by Leah Thomas a form of vagina suppression on Riley Gaines? Well, I don't know how to do the math on that. I'm just going to leave that where it is. Makes sense. Makes sense to me too. I'm feeling nostalgic. Can we hear the song about the migrant Haitians eating the dogs? Yes. Maybe we can hear it. I don't know. It's kind of long. It's a great song. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that lived there. What a wonderful moment that was last year. Deluxe Night, 1981. Personally, in response to Burning Bright, I would like to say this. I have personally been called racist and water bottles thrown at me by leftist Democrats in my own town and at Portland Ice Facility. Well, that certainly sounds like a bad experience. Old School 69, great show. Love this group combo. Funny, all this drama is like a modern day political version of the days of our lives and shows the mastery of Trump's narrative powers to invade all the zeitgeist. Yes, if only someone had been calling it a soap opera for years. Deluxe Night, 1981. I am America First, MAGA, and a farmer. The mental beating that we have been taking over the past 6 years for being white males and wanting to parent our children has created a hard line on this side. Yes, sir, I agree with that. Old School 69, Proverbs 3, verse 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Fight for truth. Trust only in God. Amen.
Amen.
Katie Hayes, Scott Besant, 2028. Well,
Sure.
All righty then. And there's a good Scott Besant joke that John made in the video from.
I pulled that in case you want to play it as an outro.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to do that. And then I have another outro that I have to play from that movie, The Dictator. And at that point, I'm going to turn the YouTube feed off. So it'll be an earlier goodnight to you YouTubers. But hey, no offense. It's just how being on the censored platform goes.
Yeah, you're lesser.
Yeah, well, there you go. Shelty Mom 0122, thank you for thinking outside of the box and sharing those ideas with us. Get us thinking about issues in different ways. You are welcome. And thank you. Polymathanon, thank you, Chris, Ashe, and Bibi. How about an Una Panuna Banca for old times, Chris? And yes, we can do that.
Una Panuna Banca.
And thank you, my friend. The final demand, Thursday nights at, say, 10:30 would be a great time for you three to do another show. Talk about how Nicki Minaj is now the savior of California and the new moral compass for MAGA. She's Scott Pressler endorsed. You don't say.
Didn't know anything about that. Nor do I plan to.
And now Keith O. Higgins goes streaking 2 rants in a row. And someone else did the last one. I heard she went deep sea fishing with 12 guys and came back with a big red snapper. And I think he must be talking about Maria Karina Paulina Luna. And there was actually, that just appeared twice. Sleep State says the Norwegians have made a mockery out of the Nobel Peace Prize. The Swedes should strip them of this duty. And
we should not be taking any Nordics seriously.
Yes.
At
The
all.
only peace prize now is the FIFA Peace Prize that Donald Trump
Right.
just won last week. And it looks like a weird gold ball. And
Which, by the
symbology-
way, is clearly...
Go ahead.
That seems to be clearly like another way. You mentioned earlier the false start thing.
Mhm.
Like, we're supposed to believe it's a coincidence that Trump was preempting Nobel Peace Prize winners being fake and gay. And then Marina Karina Machado comes out.
But, you know, the dark horse Obama secret white hat theory gets a nod on the Nobel Peace Prize he won for doing absolutely nothing.
Trump
other
got
than
one?
winning a fake election. No, remember Obama got one before he'd even entered office just for being black
Peace
and winning an
Prize, yeah.
election. Well, I mean, he probably stole the shit out of that election on the back of a very successful and mostly peaceful color revolution. So maybe they were like, this is the best we've ever seen anyone run the program. And they gave it to him for that.
So-
I could totally buy that.
Do you think that with the soccer ball, right? The Putin soccer ball thing in the beginning, and then now we're, we have this the emblem of peace as a soccer ball. There was the Mattis thing, right? So they had this big break on Syria. Now the White House is putting up a picture of President Trump next to Maz. Do you think that Trump and the alliance generally, because I think the FIFA thing speaks beyond just U.S., are we seeing signals that we're shifting into a different phase, which would, by the way, align with the July 4th, 2026, we're going to have a party because the battle part of this is largely done. What do you guys think?
I kind of think that's the case. I go back and forth in my writing about whether or not we're going to get a really cartoonish final escalation, specifically between the U.S. and Russia. Like I've for years have thought that if there's going to be any kind of real scare event, well, fake scare event, but you know what I mean, it would be that. We had the Poseidon missile stuff. They seem too chummy to me, but it's so funny because, again, if you talk to a MAGA normie, they're like, they think Russia's out to get us. So maybe that narrative will still work. But yeah, for 2026, it's more Ghost Department. But I would say the relationships that are most indicative that we're in a phase shift are the Middle Eastern relationships to me. I think those are actually really signal to the whole sovereign mesh because I was saying this last week about Maduro. Keep in mind, amidst all the very, serious rhetoric from Donald Trump toward Maduro, Vladimir Putin offered him an escape route, as did the Qataris, whom Donald Trump has just signed this incredible security agreement with. So it's like the Middle Eastern nations, the Gulf states, are, to me, the signal. Like, they're very open about their alliance in 2025. And all of those states are very closely aligned with Russia and China and the BRICS coalition. So we're supposed to believe that Trump has no designs on Russia or China or any alliances with them, but he's like enmeshing the American ecosystem, defense, and everything with their closest allies in the Middle East. And even the FIFA stuff, I think, is also part of a broader signal Ghost and I have been talking about, where there's a very real chance that American entertainment from a mainstream perspective is largely going to be piloted by the Middle East starting in 2026. They bought the biggest video game publisher in the West, which dwarfs the entirety of Hollywood. If you combined the 5 studios in Hollywood, they're not half the size of the biggest video game publisher in the West, which is now owned by Saudi Arabia. And they may or may not end up owning Warner Brothers and or a bunch of other stuff, and they own a bunch of sports leagues.
And they own 3 North Dakotans.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to go ahead and wrap up and get the hell out of here. And, oh, by the way, like, if you're yelling in the chat that these leaders are like murderous communists, where did you get that from? Is it the same place you get all the rest of the fake news from? Is that a military industrial complex and intel narrative that you have swallowed hook, line, and sinker and somehow have not yet spit out? It is amazing that people still say it, but it happens. Okay, we're going to close down with John in Kansas for a few minutes, and then we have a little movie clip, and that will be that. Ashe, thank you so much for joining us. Burning Bright, thank you for making yourself available, even though John totally bailed out on me. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon.
Events around the country, and the importance of getting together with like-minded individuals and trying to fix the problems in this country cannot be understated. And I've been asked to MC this event. I can't promise you I'll be funny. Sometimes I might be, sometimes I won't be. I was asked to talk about our elections for 15 minutes, but I don't even know if I can do it. I was told to say that our elections are fake and gay, and they are. And I'm not talking like Scott Besson, cool, kind of gay. I'm talking like Pete Buttigieg, kind of gay. It's bad. Last night we had dinner at Hannah's house, and Matt Gaetz was there, and I was listening to these people from Kansas. What do you call yourselves? Kansasonians?
Kansans.
Kansans?
Yes.
Kansans. Okay, I was listening to these Kansans list off these laundry list of issues. Like, they know this stuff better than It's insane. In South Casual, you're going to hear from him. You're going to hear from a lot of people who know the details and the specifics of election fraud. And I was kind of watching Matt Gaetz and listening to his responses, and I think the frustration is the disenfranchisement we feel with our election fraud system. The whole thing is such a joke. Like the voter registration, a joke. We have dead people in there. We have fake names. We have illegal immigrants. Totally fraudulent. And then you go and you mail out ballots to all these people, and all that's done by like companies like Runback. It all goes to a totally fraudulent, probably corrupt group of people, no accountability whatsoever. Then you actually go and vote on machines, right? You put your ballots into a machine and you just kiss it goodbye. There's no way of verifying whether or not what you got counted is what got recorded. And then the risk limiting audit where they take like one ballot from an entire group of ballots and like, okay, well, yeah, that looks good. Well, we're good there. And then there's no recourse. And that was the most surprising thing to me. The people here in Kansas who are fighting, and it's happening all over, but they're fighting, they're initiating their own lawsuits, doing all these things, trying to have some form of accountability, and they go nowhere. And they're asking the people in the system to fix the system that put them there. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. And we don't know what to do. We don't know the answers to this stuff. And I think that's the reason we do these events is at least together we can maybe come up with some solutions. But I know these people are tired of fighting it. You're not talking today, but that guy knows more about election. What was your first name?
That's nice.
Dad. Okay.
Yeah.
What Dad was saying last night, like, I couldn't believe it. Like the numbers he was listing off. He's absolutely brilliant. Yes, he is. But I can feel the frustration on your voice. Yeah. And it's like, this is why Matt's here. We need a voice to get this out there. Because we all know our elections are fraudulent. We all know they're fake and gay. We don't know how to fix it. And I think that's what we're gonna figure it out today. We're gonna solve all the problems today together.
Hopefully.
Amen. And we're going to do it with the Lord, too. And that's why the first person we're bringing up is Lorenzo Sewell. Now, this guy founded 180 Church, right? Pastor of 180 Church. He gave one of the benedictions at Trump's second inauguration. Come on up here.
This Constitution is nothing but a license for oil companies and foreign interests to destroy my beloved Wadiyah.